Let's get across the latest news concerning those protests in Iran. Well, that's the sound of huge crowds of people on foot and in cars moving through Tehran tonight. We're now in the 12th day of anti-government protest. It was sparked by the country's economic crisis. So the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi, who ruled the country until 1979, took to social media and called for large-scale protests tonight. It appears people have listened to that. Let's speak to Parmida Barez, who's following this story closely from Toronto. She's Iranian-Canadian. She's an author and activist. Parmida, thanks so much for joining us. Look, 12 days now. Can you verify what is happening on the streets in Tehran, the numbers of people, the pressure perhaps on the regime in Iran, and whether this spreads further than Tehran as well?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. Let me paint the picture for you. This is nothing like we've ever seen before. People, cars, what's reported as millions on the streets. We're talking widespread across the entire country in 31 provinces, an uprising that has all of us in awe of the sheer bravery of Iranians, the crescendo of 12 days as what was reported initially as quote unquote economic grievances has completely moved beyond that. As most Iranians know, this is a crescendo of 46 years of repression. And over the past 12 days, this has evolved into a full scale nationwide anti-regime uprising. And people are no longer demanding reform. They're rejecting the system itself and not only chanting, and this is interesting, not only chanting for what they don't want, but are very clear with their support for Prince Reza Pahlavi and his transitional leadership.
They're chanting slogans including "Death to the Dictator." That's a reference to the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And as you say, they are indicating their support for Reza Pahlavi as well. So you say millions are out on the streets. It extends beyond Tehran. I suppose the question is, will the regime act with a sort of in a unified way? I've been reading plenty of coverage about how some authorities, security forces are firing guns and tear gas towards crowds of protesters. Some of the protesters throwing stones, by the way. But what we've not seen just yet, and correct me if I'm wrong, Parmida, is the kind of response from law enforcement, from security forces that we had after those protests concerning the death of Mahsa Amini.
Yes, and of course, we are in awe of the bravery of the Iranian people. Despite this repression, there has been significant internet shutdowns. There has been tear gas, a real risk to their lives, of course, and firing at protesters. And as you know, over the last 12 days, there actually have been 30 or so killed. Yeah. And what we have, although seen, because of the masses, some of these security forces not being as repressive or sort of moving along to the side of the people, so to speak, in a sort of defective sort of way. So we are starting to see a little bit more of that, perhaps overwhelm, and some actually being on side.
Okay, the president, Pezeshkian, had. From the start, actually, I started covering this story on the 28th of December, I think it was. From the start, he said he was willing to try and sort it out, to find a resolution. He pledged to crack down on price gouging in an attempt to sort of pacify protesters. He's, I think, spoken again today, or certainly reiterated that message. He may be, of course, overruled by the supreme leader. But where does that go? You've got a president here, trying to sort of sort it out, it seems.
What I will say is that it is a complete farce. As we've seen after each and every protest and uprising, there has been brutal crackdowns. They actually will target protesters like we saw even in the Mahsa Amini uprising where they arrested 16,000. They may come in the middle of the night and kidnap you. Every time after these protests, no matter what the regime says, all the Iranians are met with is brute force and repression. So we cannot trust a word that comes out of this terror exporting criminal regime.
Okay, so,
they are not to be trusted.
So anyone, including President Pezeshkian?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's the most important thing to focus on right now is that at the call of Prince Reza Pahlavi, we told the Iranians to come to the street and chant at 8 p.m. And we have seen Iranians trust that call to action and to come as a unified all across the country and heed that call. And more than ever, we have to be their voice in the diaspora. We have to not change their rhetoric and make sure that we do the best here to help them in a nonviolent transition. And Reza Pahlavi, the prince, has a plan for transition, and as many governments that can get on board with that and support this, we will be able to avoid chaos and a vacuum post this regime.
Okay, well, look, Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Crown Prince, has taken to social media, says the world is watching, the US is watching. We had that warning from Donald Trump, didn't we? It must have been, about a week ago, maybe less, who knows? Time is a funny thing at the moment. Just basically saying, Iran, I am watching you, and I'm
right.
Watching you closely in terms of how you may take action against protesters.
Yes, and this gives Iranians hope and strength. For years, they have been begging for the international community to show solidarity with them and not let them down, because they're the ones facing the bullets, right? Mm-hmm. And they feel that sense of strength when we can see the internationally come together. Now, I wish this was much more on the news. We see a lot of it on the Twitter. I'm shocked that it's not in the news a lot more than it should be, and that enough governments are not speaking out yet.
Okay, well, look, thank you for speaking to us, Parmida Barez, following the story. She's Iranian Canadian and an author and activist. Good to have you with us. Thank you. This is
Thank
Kate
you so
Boyce.
much.
It is the evening edition on Time.